I've listened to a lot of different prepper blogs and survivalist blogs and videos, and the one thing that I have never heard any of them address is the idea of what they're doing being profitable or making anyone rich. Because, of course, it's not the goal. If you were to even ask that question, you would be looked at like you're from another planet. Because the goal in this situation is to survive. It is to provide for your community, your group of preppers. And that's the end goal. If everybody is safe at the end of the day, well fed, medically okay at the end of the day, then your strategy is working. That is the beginning and ending of the goals of preppers. Why do I lead with that? At the Florida Maquis Patreon channel, what we do is train in psychological operations. I know the two don't seem like they're attached, but they are. And this isn't a push for money. If you want to come, great. If not, that's great too. What I try to do here is use real world events to help people come to realizations on their own about what the media is trying to tell you, what their goals are, and how they're completely contradictory to your goals. One of the more successful operations that we've run has to do with these 4 maps that you see here. I had no idea when I did these videos they were going to take off at the level they did. I knew there was a psychological disconnect going on between what most in the prepper conservative community believed about a certain thing called socialism and communism, but I didn't realize the level to which it had taken root and the visceral reaction that I was going to get. But it does prove a point. Almost unanimously, when I put this map out that showed all the areas out here in the middle being red, and then Florida, Virginia, Texas, California green, was that people came to me and said, you clearly have never lived in the Midwest, even though I was born there. And you don't understand that living near the food and living around conservative people and people that you trust and know is way more important than being someplace where there's a lot of money. Almost universally. The idea of preppers is this: when things fall apart, you're going to become sustainable agriculture types. You're going to live on communes where they grow everybody's food right there. And you're going to handle all of your protection needs and all of your medical needs internally or with other local groups. And you're going to work together like a commune. You'll call it prepper compounds. The rest of the world calls it communes. And this was the realization I was hoping people would come to when they looked into the issue with Venezuela and they saw what the reaction was there in the rural and outlying areas. They would see, wow, these people are doing exactly what we would do. They're calling it by a different name, but that's exactly what we would do. We've been told for the last 10, 15, 20, 25 years that socialism means big government, Obamacare, when literally the rest of the world believes something entirely different. Down here, when they talk about, here it says comuna o nada, basically what they're talking about is no more big government. It means if it's going to be up to us, here, locally, in this commune. And this is what the mainstream media in this country has tried to demonize and tried to make you believe is something that it's not. using things like cognitive dissonance, correlation causation, availability heuristic, confirmation bias, all of these different psychological techniques that we train at the Patreon channel are used to make you believe a lie. With the anniversary of 9/11 coming up, and 3 hurricanes aimed right at the East Coast right now, more than likely, at some point, Florida is going to be in the crosshairs. And the country itself might experience something that will test preppers, that will test your ability to work with your local group. This article here from Venezuela Analysis talks about militarily what may happen in the next 90 days in South America. There has been an incredible absence of riots, an absence of giant throngs of starving people overrunning Miraflores Palace. We also don't see the Venezuelan military deployed in the streets of Venezuela, do we? Like we see in Brazil, like we see in Colombia, like we will very shortly see in Argentina. Everything they told you was going to happen in Venezuela if Mr. Maduro took power on 20 August, which he did, has failed to transpire. And so they are now trying to find other things to distract you with. And nobody's asking the question. Nobody's stepping up and saying, how could you have been so wrong every year for the last 6 years, mainstream media? You told us ABC was going to happen, but it didn't. And now when we look into what's really happening there, it's very familiar. Most prepper groups have in their ranks some folks that are former military. I'm sure all of you know what this is. This is the one acronym that crosses all 5 services. It's one of the first acronyms everyone learns. Standard Operating Procedure. There is a policy document for literally everything you do in the military. Somebody has typed it up. It's usually, at least in my time, it was sitting in a plastic binder folder, usually hanging on a wall somewhere or in a drawer somewhere. If there's something you need to do in the military, somebody has told you already how to do it, which is key to survival. It is critical that everyone in your group have a plan and everybody be on the same sheet of music. You can't have a bunch of individuals. The goal of a prepper group necessarily has to be the survival of the group. Not profit, not self-promotion, but the survival of the group and the well-being of the group. If you don't have that, you will fail. And it sounds a whole awful lot like socialism. And the visceral reaction that I got to all of these videos, and most of the views are people coming back over and over again to reiterate how wrong I am. Which, fine, wonderful, as long as you learn the point. As long as you get the idea. I still think that there's going to be, and we've already seen, there's an issue in Nebraska where inexplicably an entire cell wing, the doors just opened up and they had to go in with chemicals and spray to get all these guys back in their cells. That nobody knows how this happened. It just happened. I still think there's going to be a giant threat from prisoners that most people don't see coming. But the idea was this, that the reason you want to be out in the middle of nowhere, the reason that you want to be away from populated areas, the reason that you want to be places where there's agriculture and people that you trust and people that you know, is the exact same reason that places like Venezuela and Bolivia and Chile to some extent have turned to what they call a quote-unquote socialist model. It's for the exact identical same reasons, so that they can be self-sufficient, and the goal of their societies is not the enrichment of one or the enrichment of a class of people, but the goal is to feed the people, to care for the people, to make sure that people day to day aren't starving or without shelter or without clothes or without medical care, which will be the goal of your prepper compound. Will that not be the goal? I've never heard a prepper say, you know what, everything, this is all going to work and fantastic, but nobody's going to earn a profit, so we shouldn't do it. Never heard that. So, anyway, I just wanted to leave that there, but I hope that in the new evolution of training that's going to happen at the Patreon channel, we get some new folks in, and we can start to build that group of people. And like I said, it's $1 a month, and you can have access to the training and windows into the tactics and techniques that our mainstream media uses to make you believe lies. So we'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe.